There were 14 games on in the NBA on Tuesday, but the big news is the injury to Giannis Antetokounmpo, and we hope that it's not something that's going to end his season. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and honk if you like pizza. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Thumb it up, double bang, comment. All that stuff is a very, very, very large help. 14 games on, so I'm not going to muck around, and injuries, as per usual, are all over the shop in terms of fake injuries before the game, but actually significant injuries in-game today on Tuesday. So we'll see. We'll go through those, and we'll talk about them as we get to them. Let's start by having a look at some of the moves on the waiver wire trends over the last 24 hours. The most added player, and as most leagues are not active, you're going to see not very big percentages in terms of guys moving. The guy that added the most is Jabari Walker, up 4%. Number 2 was Tristan Vukcevic, up 3%, and in the end, he didn't even play. Out of nowhere, that one. Chimezie Metu up 3%, made sense. Zach Collins up 2%, pretty good move. Julian Champagnie up 2%, love that move. And Scott Pippen up 2%. All of those moves are great. Just one of them, unfortunately, with Vukcevic didn't work out because out of nowhere he didn't play. Now, guys getting dropped. Number 1 on the list is Santi Aldama, down 3%. I don't think he's coming back this season, so that makes total sense. Number 2 on the list is Russell Westbrook, down 2%. Not really sure why you would drop Russ when Kawhi is out, and James Harden was at risk of being out, then also ended up being out. So that's a weird one. Fontecchio down 2%. Yes, Vassell down 2%. These guys aren't playing. Marvin Bagley down 2%. Absolutely. And then John Isaac. I know it was a stinking situation for him with the way that things happened over the last couple of games, but not sure I would have necessarily dropped him here, but I do get it. And they've also got a back-to-back coming up, so maybe we don't even get any Isaac playing on Wednesday. We have got games to talk about because that's what we're doing. The first game we're going to speak about, Detroit, the Philadelphia 76ers. We did have a couple of lineup changes in this one. Jalen Duren returned. That meant that Jim Wiseman moved back to the bench while Joel Embiid returned for the Sixers, and that meant that basketball Paul Reed moved back to the bench. But that wasn't it, because the Thick Hogsman returned for Philadelphia, and that meant that Tyrese Maxey, who played the last game, sat this one out to rest, and Kyle Lowry has now rested the last 2 games. So, as per usual, things are just absolutely all over the place. Comfortable victory in the end for Philadelphia, 120-102. You're going to be shocked to know that Cade Cunningham's injury management situation extended another day, and he was out here. I honestly just don't think that he's going to return. The frustrating part of all of this is just we don't know. So, I know at times people get confused with my take on this. Some people tell me that, like, hey, why are you telling them that they have to play everyone at all points when they're healthy? And that is absolutely never my intention whatsoever. I am very much in favor of load management, developing other players, spreading things out, minimizing injury. I'm always in favor of that. So I don't really know how you get that out of it. My problem is for us from a fantasy point of view, for viewers, for fans, is the constant lying on the injury report. Like, no one actually cares if you say Cade hurt his knee back in January. He's been playing through some issues. We just want to make sure he's okay, ready for a full off-season program, and we're going to see what someone else is going to do over the next 2 weeks. Nobody cares. Like, absolutely nobody goes, oh, man, what a disgusting franchise. They'd say that for 20 other reasons, but not because of that reason. That's my problem with all of this stuff, is the constant lying. Now, I just don't think Cade's going to return. Maybe he does. I don't know. Does the NBA ring him up and go, just give him one more game, man? Like, okay. I don't get it. Anyway, Ivy had a terrible run, and the last couple of games have been much better. 25, 5 and 4 with 6 dribbles. Bad from the line, which I don't know why he's such a bad free throw shooter, but he is. And then out of nowhere, the diseased scrotum popped up. Evan Fournier had 21 points in 26 minutes with 2 blocks. I believe Fournier had a couple of seasons when he was a starter in Orlando where he totaled 4 blocks or less. I'm not going to look that up because I don't care. Actually, you know what? I say that, but I actually do care. I need to go and have a look because I am pretty sure that Fournier had seasons where he literally had 4 blocks for an entire year. And now he gets 2 in a game. Man, how the mighty have fallen. Let's have a look if I can see anything. Well, last season, he barely played. He had 3 blocks last year. So that one doesn't really count because he only played 460 minutes in those games. But maybe I'm misremembering this. He is one of the greatest all-time no-block players. Bojan Bogdanovic will right up there with him. I just need to see, did he ever have that? Because 4 is a low number, Josh. You've gone out on a limb pretty hard here trying to explain that. I'm just waiting for my page to load up because, internet, who cares? It's pretty slow. Here we go. I think we got the information. Let's have a look. Oh, Josh, you did it. Evan Fournier played in the 15-16 season 2,566 minutes, 79 games for the Magic, and had 2 blocks. The next season, he played 2,233 minutes in 68 games and had 4 blocks. He had 8 blocks in 3 seasons combined. Wowee. There you go. Anyway, what a long story that is to tell you that Fournier had 2 here and I don't care. Wiseman played 28 minutes. He had 15 and 11. Solid enough. I would say overall, recently, it's been a little bit disappointing from Duren. While, did I say Wiseman? I meant Duren. He played the 28 minutes, while Wiseman had 8 and 6. Marcus Sasser keeps starting. Honestly, he might be bad. I don't think he's very good. He had 10 points, 5 assists, 30%. Not sure we want to roster him. Well, Chimezie Metu got the big minutes with Tosan Ebwamwan back in the G League. I would imagine that the two-way situation resolves itself and he's able to play in some of these games, but I don't know. Anyway, we still roll with Metu, who only had 7 points on 30%, which stinks, and he didn't have a single defensive stat, but he had 11 rebounds, and I like the opportunity that he got, while 50-point legend Malachi Flynn had 12 points in 21 minutes for the Sixers. 36 minutes for Embiid, 37, 11, and 8, 3 steals, 2 blocks, 4 threes. Big stuff. Cameron Payne played 27 minutes because no Lowry or Maxey. He had 5, 5, and 6 with 3 steals. He took 3 shots. But those other assist numbers and steal numbers are great. I just don't trust his role. And now, with Embiid playing those minutes, we can drop Paul Reed 8 and 6, and you stream him in if Embiid sits. We did get the return of DeAnthony Melton. The wave pool played 16 minutes. He had 5 points with 2 steals on 22%. We don't rush to add him. In fact, we just don't add him as he returns from that injury. While it was the best game from Bud Hield in a while. 18 and 6 with 5 threes. I also don't care. Kelly Oubre, we did see a bit of a drop-off, especially in the efficiency. 16 shot attempts for 17 points. But he did add 3 blocks and everything looked pretty okay. So we still roll with him. And there's not much else here. Batum had 2 points in his 29 minutes. Oh, yeah, Tobias Harris. Double-double for the big fella in 28 minutes in his return to action. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Did you know that Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball? Yeah, so getting your tickets is even faster and easier for all of your stick and ball games that you're looking to go to. The prices on the Game Time app, they actually go down as well, the closer that you get towards first pitch. That's their killer last-minute deals you hear me talk about so often. They've also got their zone deals, their all-in pricing, their guarantees as well. So many great things that Game Time offers you. They've also got the customize your spot scenario. So you can go in there, you can have a look at all the different things that customize your experience, set your location on so that when things come in your area, you get the flash notifications like, hey, something's going on tonight. Game Time's got tickets. When do you want to have a look? Why don't you go? And you go, yeah, it sounds like a pretty good idea, actually, Game Time. So get in there, we have a look at all those different options, and they chuck them out to you. It's really fantastic. Plus, those guarantees are fantastic. They've also got a 24-hour return guarantee, so you can return your tickets within 24 hours from the time of purchase, and you get a full credit back to your Game Time account with no questions asked. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Okay, that's one game out of the 14 done. A lot of Evan Fournier talk there. Let's go on to the next one. It is the Indiana Pacers and the Toronto Raptors. There were lineup changes here, as there are for nearly every game today. But this one, there wasn't many. It was just Emmanuel quickly resting for the Raptors, while Javon Freeman-Liberty stepped into his starting position. No official word on the Raptors for Wednesday, but I would expect that Barrett and Olynyk sit, and that quickly comes back in. Trent and Bruce Brown, a little bit iffy in terms of what they do. The Raptors got out to a really hot start in this one, but in the end, the Pacers get the victory 140 to 123. Obi Toppin is the 52nd ranked player over the last 5 games, 82nd over the last 2 weeks. I'm not really sure how it's happening, but it is. He had 23 and 6 with 3 threes, a steal and a block, and played 22 minutes. I don't feel great about adding him. In fact, I probably wouldn't, because I don't play again until Friday when there's 15 games on, and then Sunday, right? But he's been good. Also a really good game from Halliburton, 30 and 5 with 5 assists, and Siakam had 16 and 9. But overall, even though this game was very much in the Raptors' favour early, this game was over pretty early on. We only got 21 minutes out of Miles Turner. He did have 3 fouls, but they went to Isaiah Jackson instead of Jalen Smith. And if we knew that Isaiah Jackson played 18 a night, we'd use him. He had 7 rebounds, he had 2 blocks. That's what he does. He does it all the time. He did it in 18 minutes, but we don't know that he's going to play each night. So that's what makes it frustrating. Well, TJ McConnell, 17, 2 and 7. Again, just putting up the numbers in that 20-minute role. You don't need... Look, the problem here is, again, there's no games for this team Wednesday, Thursday. So you don't worry about Isaiah Jackson. You don't worry about Toppin. You drop McConnell. You drop Neesmith. If for some reason you've got Nembhard, you drop him. Honestly, you might consider dropping Miles Turner. Might. And the reason is that getting someone in Wednesday, Thursday, is that more beneficial than the whatever difference it is from having Miles Turner on Friday versus someone that you'd bring in as your 11th player to start instead of him. The same discussion we had with the Bulls last week. Is that marginal difference between the 11th guy and Miles Turner, is it large enough to offset opening up a roster slot for a Wednesday, Thursday stream? I can't answer that specifically for your team, but I can pose that question that you should ask it. What is going on with Kelly Olynyk? Well, not what's going on, because we know what's going on. The man's the 20th ranked player over the last 2 weeks. He's 22, 5 and 4 in 34 minutes. He probably sits tomorrow, but this is unbelievable stuff again. For the second time in his career, he's going to be a fantasy playoff league winner type guy. Big stuff from Olynyk. Don't expect it next season, but everything's falling into place here. No Pirtle, no Barnes, so it's Olynyk time. No quickly in this one, so Freeman-Liberty started. He had 20 and 8 on 70% shooting. That's great and all, but we've seen a few opportunities for Javon over the course of these last couple of weeks, and he's never done anything remotely like this, so don't overreact. Jordan Nwora went to the locker room late in this game, never returned. He had 11 points with 2 threes and 2 blocks. We know that if we get 30 Nwora minutes, he'll be useful, but I can't feel any level of confidence in that. While Barrett had 23, 4 and 4, and Bruce Brown a nice 16, 3 and 5, but does he even play tomorrow? I don't know. Gary Trent, 16 points, 4 steals, good enough there. Roll him out, but if he sits, you drop. Not good enough to hold on to for a 15-game slate Friday if these guys... Now, Olynyk would be. You would 100% start Olynyk. You would start Barrett. You would start quickly on Friday, Sunday. Trent, Abaji, Brown, you wouldn't if they do happen to sit a game here on Wednesday. The next game up, we're talking the Dallas Mavericks and the Charlotte Hornets. No resting for anyone in this Dallas game. No resting for anyone in the Hornets side of things either. The Mavericks win it super easy. 130 to 104. Kyrie Irving still plays 37 minutes in this game. He had 18, 8 and 9, 2 steals and 3 blocks. Really good. Luka, 39, 12 and 10 with 8 threes in 35 minutes. Unbelievable. They play the Heat tomorrow, so I'm going to expect that these guys play. Then they have the Pistons on Friday, where I reckon there might be some rest coming. Dan Gafford was fantastic. We're going back to this guy never missing shots, are we? 12 out of 12 from the field. He had 26 and 7 with a steal and 2 blocks. And after some down performances, like this game brings him to 112th over the last 2 weeks. This is awesome. Derek Jones had 9 points in 24 minutes. And I am so pumped to see the huge game that PJ Washington had in his revenge game against his former team, because he's figured it out. The consistency's there. He's putting up these big numbers, and he's got the extra motivation for going against the team that traded him away. So he had 1 point on 0 of 7 shooting in 28 minutes, PJ. It's almost like revenge games aren't real, and PJ Washington is one of the most inconsistent bastards in the NBA. He had 1, 7, and 3 on 0 of 7 shooting. The only point he had was a free throw, and then he missed one of those anyway. Yeah, one of the worst games of the day after a huge, huge run of big performances. You don't drop him, but this is Peach. Timmy Hardaway was pretty good, 15 points with 3 threes. I don't feel super good about using him anywhere. And then for the Hornets, well, if PJ Washington didn't get the revenge game, then surely, after he got shit-talked all the way out of being traded out of that team, everyone's saying that it's all his fault and he's sour with the locker room and everyone hates him and no one wants to play. But surely Grant Williams showed them who's... Oh, not really. Ooh, 12, 3, and 4 on 42% shooting for Grant in 32 minutes. Not really very good. But we still roll with Grant Williams for fantasy. Brandon Miller, nice bounce back after a stinker in the last one. 21, 6, and 4 with 3 steals, and Bridges had 22, 5, and 3. Good numbers all around there. And the Davis Bertans streams continue to be good. I don't know how, but they do. 13 points with 3 threes for him. Mann had 11, 5, and 6, but this was a stinker from Vasa Misic. He had 6, 2, and 4 on 30%. I would still roll with him. And honestly, this is probably the most stable rotation currently in the NBA, which again is just an amazing thing to say. And the rotation's stable, and it includes Pokusevski and Davis Bertans. These are just things that happen at this absolutely infernal time of year. The next one could be an absolute marquee game. Two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Unfortunately, it's scheduled for one of the final days of the NBA regular season, so you're going to have random guys in and random guys out, and that's exactly what we had for the Celtics going to Milwaukee to take on the Bucks. Jason Tatum returned. He replaced the resting Kristaps Porzingis. While in Milwaukee, we had like a permanent lineup change because Patrick Beverley started over Leaky Beasley. All right, did it work or not? Well, we'll talk about the results of that in a second. And then the other thing we had is Al Horford sitting for Boston. So the cashier, Xavier Tillman, moved into that starting lineup instead. So the Celtics clearly not taking it serious. They played Jason Tatum at center as well during this game. Let's talk about what the end result was, because Milwaukee does win it 104-91, and I could not stress this enough. That is, the end result of this game is the least important thing in this matchup. It just doesn't matter in the slightest. I mean, it matters for Milwaukee slightly because it helps keep the Magic off their backs for the 2 seed, but for Boston, it doesn't matter at all. I can go through and read you these things from Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday and Jason Tatum. I don't really think I need to bother with it, honestly. What I do need to tell you about is that Peyton Pritchard played only 24 minutes and had 6, 2, and 3. Sam Hauser had 8, 5, and 2 with 2 steals in 28 minutes, but Hauser and Pritchard are going to be useful the rest of the week because there's no chance that Tatum, Brown, Holiday, White, I'll even throw Porzingis and Horford in there. There's no chance that those guys play all 3 of the remaining games. None. They're just not going to do it. Trying to guess when they sit is the tough part. I think Drew Holiday sits the next game, probably Jaylen Brown, but I don't know. And then it's when you've got to start to activate those other guys like Hauser and like Pritchard. And you'll even get some random games where Jordan Walsh gets extra playing time. The problem here is it's in Milwaukee. This is the bad stuff because Giannis Antetokounmpo, who had been dealing with a hamstring problem, I cannot say that any of this stuff is related because I don't know. But there has been a lot of studies about correlation of injuries in certain lower body parts where you lead to compensation, leading to other injuries developing. I hope that's not the case because this man has a hamstring problem. He played on the back-to-back against 2 terrible teams that they lost, and then he came back and played in this one and then was dribbling up the court, I think at the end of the third, towards the start of the fourth quarter, around that second half anyway, and just went down non-contact calf injury. And that's bad. So there are a few outcomes here. It's something that looks bad, the way that Halliburton's hamstring injury looked bad, and then they diagnosed him that he's out for like grade 1 strain for a week or whatever, which in hindsight, maybe they got that one wrong. Is it like the Karl Anthony Towns calf injury, where he was in a similar spot and went down like he'd been shot in the back of the calf and then ended up being a 3-month plus injury? They're calling it a soleus strain. Lillard had something similar to that. Or is it the Kevin Durant variety calf strain where they call it a calf strain and then they reveal you've actually torn your Achilles? That's the problem. And the worry that I have here with Giannis is that in all the press conferences after the game, the fact that they're talking about like Doc Rivers, now he is an actual doctor, so I can't doubt what he says. But he's like, yeah, we're going to go and get, he's going to have an MRI. They're going to do a test on the calf and the Achilles tendon. You go, oh, absolutely, because I don't know why this doesn't happen, right? In the NBA, this doesn't happen. But in other sports, and by other sports, I mean the sport that I'm more locally familiar with, the Australian Football League. If someone pings their ACL, if someone does their Achilles, The doctors know immediately. There are certain manual tests you can do, and then the press conference after the game, it gets announced like immediately. They say, yeah, look, we'll get further imaging done tomorrow, but this is what's happened. He's done, right? And we know that immediately. In the NBA, they never do that. Like, we had scenarios where Kawhi Leonard would tear his ACL and we wouldn't hear for 4 days. Zach LaVine did as well. We're calling it a knee sprain for 3 days and they wouldn't say anything. Durant's Achilles teared. No one said anything. So the fact that they came out and said, yeah, we're testing the Achilles is a gigantic red flag. And I hope everything is all right for Giannis and I hope it's not the Achilles, even though, again, a grade 3 calf is playoffs over. What I will tell you is there is zero chance that Giannis is playing this week. He's not playing tomorrow. It is just not happening. There is no way he's playing this week. They would be the biggest idiots in the world if Giannis plays this week. Insane. We hope it's fine. And we hope that playing through a hamstring injury didn't lead to a compensation issue with the calf. Fingers crossed. Pat Beverly started 26 minutes, 20 and 10 with 4 threes. That's amazing. That's ridiculous. If he's going to start and Giannis is going to be out and then Middleton out tomorrow, then yeah, look, that is usable. 100% usable. Middleton probably does sit tomorrow. He has 12, 6, and 9 here. While Lillard, again, a stinker, 12, 3, and 5. But in the games without Giannis earlier or most of this season, he's been really good. So let's watch that. Portis also going to see an uptick. He had 15 and 10. And Brook Lopez ended with 15 and 6. He hit 5 threes. I think he had 15 points in the first quarter and then didn't score after that. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong on that. While Leaky Beasley, the man, is trash. He cannot shoot. He's trash at the moment. He's not trash as a player. He has his moments. But is there a more streaky bloke in the NBA than Leaky? I honestly don't think so. I don't think there is. So we should be looking at Beverly. Jay Crowder was actually a DNP here, and he's very likely to be able to start tomorrow, but it could be Connaughton, but the other guy they went to was AJ Green here, 6 points. But we don't add Crowder, we don't add Connaughton, we don't add Green with Giannis out. But what Glenn Rivers decides to do will be something to watch. They should just start Portis, but Rivers has just been so anti that I don't know what they'll do. But they could start Crowder at the 3, they could start Portis at the 4, or Connaughton, whatever. He's got a lot of different ways to make mistakes, and I'm sure he'll pick one that's probably one of the more damaging ones to do. Today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Sometimes we all just need that opportunity to get something off our chest. Big things, small things, there are a lot of things in your life that can really get to you. And it builds up, and you've got to be able to unburden yourself to someone in your life that's unbiased. And that's exactly what a therapist can do. What's on your chest? What do you need to get off? Are you a Bucks fan that saw your season hopes go up in flames potentially with Giannis and that non-contact leg injury? I know you'd want to get over it. I actually saw something today, a study, saying the average American takes 2.5 hours to snap out of a bad mood after their team loses. I get that. And if something happens that might actually end your season, well, that is something you need to get off your chest. Therapy is different for everybody. This might seem small, and it is. But, well, it's not for Giannis, but it is for you, if that's your team. But getting stuff off your chest is useful, and it's helpful, and we've all got more important things as well we need to deal with. So just getting the small stuff out of the way can help you focus on the bigger stuff. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA for 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. The next game, the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks. Some lineup changes here in Miami. Tyler Hero started. Terry Rozier was out. Rozier, we knew that was sort of going to happen with his neck. And then Duncan Robinson, who was probable in the injury report, then was listed out. And then they said, yeah, this actually could be a long time. So we'll see what he's probably done for the regular season. Caleb Martin moved in and started in Duncan Robinson's position in this one. So what happened? Well, the game went to double overtime. Yet we had a score that's reminiscent of just a regulation game. 117-111 Miami wins. Bam played 48 minutes for 10 points. He did other stuff well. 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals. And Jim Butler had 25, 8, and 9. Good numbers there. Huge night from Little Chungus, Nikola Jovic. 40 minutes, 23 and 8 with 5 threes. He is playing better. Not enough that I cared to add him in 12-team leagues, or probably even 14, but some better performances. While Tyler Hero had 33, 5, and 4 in 48 minutes. While Jovic is improving, the other Damian Lillard trade piece is getting worse. And with Robinson and Rozier out, Jaime Jaquez played only 22 minutes in a double overtime game. and had 3 points on 50% shooting. He is, you can say rookie wall as much as you want. That's cool. But he's been sucking for the last 3 months or so. And obviously we're not rostering him. While Haywood Highsmith jumped back up to 35 minutes with Caleb Martin starting, Highsmith had 13 and 7, which is fine. But he's a guy that when he's absolutely scorching hot, you try, and then otherwise it falls back off as always. As for Caleb Martin, another guy that's reputation and value is entirely inflated. He went scoreless. PJ Washington his way to 0 of 9 shooting. He did have 2 steals and 2 blocks, but the man has been nowhere near relevant at all for any sort of significant stretch of time this season. He's struggling, and we wouldn't bother adding him. For the Hawks, DeJounte Murray, 49 minutes, 29, 13, and 13 with 4 steals. Now, he took 31 shots, another game with more shot attempts than points. That efficiency is terrible, but he is generating big counting stats. Unfortunately, Jalen Johnson sprained his ankle for the 3rd time this season. I'm sure there'll be everyone clamoring to tell us that he's a do not draft player, much like they were with LaMelo Ball last season when he sprained his ankle 3 times. I'm sure everybody will be jumping all over telling us never to draft Jalen Johnson. He needs to change his shoes. He needs to wear ankle braces because he just keeps hurting his ankle. I'm sure that is happening right now in the chat and the comments. Jalen had 13 and 8 with a steal before getting hurt, and you'd have to think that, given it is the 3rd ankle sprain, that the rest of this week is in danger, and maybe he doesn't play the plane. I don't know. Hunter. It's actually it's an unbelievably good DeAndre Hunter game, and this is actually very different to what he usually brings. He played 47 minutes. He had 23 and 11, so 11 rebounds, already unbelievable. He had 2 steals and a block. Wow. And he scored well without shooting 80%. He shot only 44%, which is a standard Hunter night. Normally it's 43% for 13 points. But this was a very good game. And this is why, despite how bad he sucks, the fact that he gets pumped full so much with so many minutes, that's why we had to keep holding. Fernando was a nice little stream, 12 and 4, while Capella played 37 minutes. And you want to talk about stinking shooting? If I'm going to criticize DeJounte Murray, and I am, I'll also criticize Bogdan Bogdanovic, who had 11 points on 17 shots. Yuck. 24% for 1 rebound, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. He's been great. This was bad. Very, very, very bad. Not much else going on in that one, so that does allow us now to transition over to the next game, which is the Washington Wizards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Wizards, out of nowhere, there was no Tristan Vukcevic. I don't really know where that came from. So they started Anthony Gill, and then John Davis, who started the last game, he went back to the bench, and that meant that the sandwich, Patrick Baldwin Jr., was able to jump back into the starting lineup with Kyle Kuzma's season, you would guess, effectively done. The Wizards got out to a red-hot start in this one, but in the end, Minnesota gets them 130 to 121. As for Gill, 15 and 9 with 3 blocks in 36 minutes. Now, it's taken Vukcevic, Holmes, Bagley all to be out to get Gill here. And if Holmes and Vukcevic are out again, then I guess you could consider Gill an option. As for the sandwich, that's 2 good games in a row for Baldwin. 15 and 6, 3 threes, 2 steals. I'm not going to say that that's a must roster because their schedule's bad. They don't play again till Friday. So you're not adding Gill. You're not adding Baldwin because of that. But they are interesting. Avdia had 15, 6, and 5. Bad shooting, but good free throws. Solidly mid-game. While Poole had 24, 3, and 6, and Kispert had 25, 3, and 5. Good games from both of those guys. Jared Butler's sort of fallen off a bit. We really do need Jordan Poole to be out to consider Butler an option, and that's not happening. So Butler had 4 and 6, and maybe you get a run with him on Sunday. Maybe. For the Wolves, no Towns, but he looks like he's returning soon. You might get some limited minutes in for him for the last 2 games of the year. And then Naz Reid got ejected. So that does change a lot here. And it meant that Anthony Edwards was able to do everything offensively. 51 points in 38 minutes for Edwards against the Wizards defense. He had 6 rebounds and 7 assists, but only 29 shots and 59% is fantastic. While Gobert had 19, 16, 2 steals and 4 blocks. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who started for Reid, had 23, 4 and 5, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He has been ludicrously good. For fantasy, not really. This is obviously great. But just in terms of a role player, he's been so useful. If Reid is out, I don't think I would add Alexander Walker. I'd probably move more to Kyle Anderson, who couldn't have had a worse game. It's almost like he was PJ Washington against his former team. 1 point, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists for Kyle there, which stinks. I probably would hold just because... I was going to say if Reid's out. He's not out. He's ejected. Reid's fine, so don't worry about any of that. I would probably still consider holding Anderson, at least for his assist numbers, but that stinks. Jordan McLaughlin had 7 assists in his 25 minutes, while Mike Conley was solid enough. And guess who didn't do anything? Yeah, you're right. Jaden McDaniels, 9 points, 28 minutes, steal, block, 6 shot attempts, continues to be one of the worst fantasy players in the entirety of your NBA. Let's go on to the next game. It is the New York Knickerbockers, the old G-Bangers, up against the Chicago Bulls. So what happened in terms of lineups here? Well, there was a change for the Bulls. Ayo Dosunmu was out. Alex Caruso returned. The Knicks ran with their same usual lineup, or their current same usual lineup. What about the victory? The Knicks get it. 128-117. The Knicks, or the Bulls and the Hawks in the play-in is going to be one of the worst games you'll ever see, I'm guessing. Because they're both bad. For the Knicks, Brunson played 42 minutes. Probably didn't need that against the Bulls, but there we are. 45, 3 and 8, 7 dribbles, 12 of 12 from the line. Sensational stuff. Josh the Hitman Hart. Ever since the wrist became a problem, now the man can't miss. 17, 13, and 7 in 46 minutes. Again, probably too many minutes to go 46 against this terrible Bulls team when you're banged up, but what do I know? And then DiVincenzo had 21, 4, and 6. Hartenstein, not quite at his best, but 11, 4, and 6 with 3 blocks, or as Stephen A. Smith would say, Hartenstein giving us real value coming off the bench, because Stephen A. Smith is paid millions and millions of dollars to know absolutely nothing. Mitch Robinson had 0 points in 20 minutes, while the Jedi had 24 points, OG Anunoby, 4 dribbles, and a block on 56% shooting. Juice McBride, we very much drop him.
Get that garbage out of here!
7 points in 22 minutes. Very easy drop decision there. Not much else to talk about. Oh yeah, your mate, the big sneeze, he's bad. Out of the rotation. For the Bulls, I'll talk about Vooch in a second, but let's talk Drummond. 5 minutes, 4 points for Drummo. Left the game in a wheelchair due to an ankle sprain. You would think that that's probably him done for the rest of the week, and that meant that we got way more Nikola Vucevic, because the idiots behind building this team didn't really decide that power forward was a priority. They've got none of those. Center was a priority. They've literally got none of those. I mean, they've got the two, Vooch and Drummond, but there's nobody else. And power forwards, they had Patrick Williams, and there's nobody else. And now Williams is down, and Drummond is out. So there's nobody to play his positions. So we've got 39 minutes out of Vooch, 26 and 5 on 75%. Super efficient. Probably took a lot of free throws. Yeah, actually 0. Cool. Caruso did his thing, 9 points, 3 threes. That's great. Well, the points are, the threes are. 6 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, just chugging along. While DeRozan was very good, 34, 5, and 6. And Kobe White, finally, the shots go in, my guy. And then he decides to go 0 of 2 from the line, because why wouldn't he continue to be one of the best free throw shooters in the NBA? 24, 3, and 6. But the guy who keeps doing little bits and pieces is Javonte Green. 31 minutes for Greeny, 9 and 12. Now, it's definitely not his best game. And, of course, there was no Dosunmu here. But next game, there's going to be no Drummond. So Green does have the ability to go small, because, honestly, this team doesn't have any centers. Are they going to go with Adama Sanogo, who played 5 minutes here at center? Like, their backup center is going to be Torrey Craig or Javonte Green. So he's going to get minutes, even if Dosunmu plays in the next one. So you could consider Javonte at least somewhat of a stream guy, even though this wasn't the perfect game for him. He can be better. I'm sure he will be better at some point. We're just not quite there yet. That'll bring us on to the next game. Which one is this? It is your San Antonio Spurs. Yep, the San Antonio Spurs up against the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm just trying to find the exact button that I need to hit here, because I'm going to hit it right now. The Spurs, the Grizzlies, we did have lineup changes in this one because Keldon Johnson was out. So Sandro Mamakilishvili started. And then the guy that I put on the cover of the stream show for yesterday, I thought he's going to play a lot of minutes, this bloke, Malginha Pereira. Well, they said, thanks, you're 10 days up, you're not coming back. Cool. So he started and played 30 minutes last game, Malginha. But he didn't play. So sad noises. But what did happen is Brandon Clark started instead. So that was the big move there, which is, obviously great to have Brandon Clark back and playing after that Achilles tear. The Spurs win it easy, 102-87. Wemby, 18, 7, and 6 with a casual 7 blocks. It does appear they're setting him up to sit tomorrow. Be aware of that. While Mamu had 11 and 16 with 4 assists, I would add Mamakilishvili. Keldon's not returning. I would add Mamakilishvili. The Bubbles man, Julian Champagny, only 30 minutes because they blew them out. 17 and 3 threes with 2 steals. He is a 12-team league guy, amazingly. We also got 21 minutes of CD Sissoko. Wouldn't add him yet, but there might be an opportunity at some point. He had 10 points with 3 rebounds, and Trey Jones had 8 and 7. We didn't get any Wemby and Zach Collins crossover. Now, Zach was one of the guys that was added. I would definitely hold because I think Wemby will sit tomorrow. Malaka Branham was bad. I think he's bad just in general. 10 points, 2 threes, 31% shooting. I don't even love the volume enough there to consider him a must-roster guy. Well, Devontae Graham, who had been playing a lot, had 3 points on 17%. So Al Devontae, because he is bad. But, again, probably would hold through till tomorrow. For the Grizzlies, Taylor Jenkins basically told us that Jaren and Desmond Bane aren't coming back this season. Thank you for at least telling us that with 3 games left. We got something. The return of Desmond Bane from that ankle problem where there was just so much lying around it, and now to come back, play 4 games and sit again, I just do not understand a single part of it. I do not understand the lying about Marcus Smart's injury. I don't even know if it's lying, or the fact that you just don't tell us something about it, like no news on it whatsoever. So I'm going to guess that Jaren's done, Bane's done, Williams is done, Smart's done, Aldama is done, Morant is done. Well, we know that. Conchar is done, Zaire is done, Watanabe is done, and Rose is done. I almost called him Rose like he's a bottle of wine. The ones I don't know about here are LaRavia and Kennard and Lamar Stevens, who I think might return tomorrow, but I would guess that Brandon Clark sits. What a disgusting mess at the moment. Scott Pippen had 14, 7, and 5, 4 steals and a block. Shot badly, but I don't think that these guys are returning like Kennard. So I think you're okay with it, but I don't know. But what I do know is that Trey Jemison is going to have this opportunity. 14 and 9, steal block. I still do think there is a game he might have to sit. Maybe it's the final game of the year, I don't know. But we roll with him, and Brandon Clark played 27 minutes. Now, it wasn't a great game from Clark, 14 and 1 with a steal and a block, and he will sit tomorrow, I'm guessing. But when they're back and playing on Friday, then you can get Clark back in, and you probably would start him, to be honest. Jordy Goodwin had 19 rebounds. Yeah, we roll with Jordy. And Xavier Simpson, 12, 3, and 5. Big minutes there. But this is how this team's going. We had 31 minutes from the big fella, Timmy Allen. Two-time legend had 6 points with 2 steals. And then the Seven Nation Army legend, Jack White, had 6 points in 26 minutes. We're not rostering Tim Allen or Jack White or whatever, unless you're looking for someone to snitch on a cocaine deal. Maybe you go to Tim Allen for that. G.G. Jackson had 11 and 4 with 2 assists in his 28 minutes and shot absolutely horrifically. And for all of the buzz about G.G., and look, I had some buzz about him, he's been dreadful. Honestly, from a category perspective, horrendous. 244th ranked player. 229th in 30 minutes over the last 2 weeks. Points league's definitely better, but still not blowing us away. And this team is going to continue, I would guess, to be an absolute disaster of a mess all the way through the rest of the season, which is thankfully only 2 more games for this team. That's right, 2 more games. The next game up. The Orlando Magic. But they do lose. I probably shouldn't have done the noise. I should have made it more sad. Against the Rockets, they lose. But there was a starting lineup change because, despite them listing him questionable, the tricky Magic, Franz Wagner did not play, and Markel Fultz started in his place. John Isaac, with the back spasms, was able to play, and we'd heard that 3 times already, but he was actually able to play in this one. So, let's talk Magic. They lose 106-118. Suggs had 21, 2, and 4, and a full Richie Beno. Love that from Suggsy. Well, what did Fultz do, who had been playing better? Well, he played 34 minutes. He had 18 points and 4 rebounds. Nothing exciting. He took 18 shots, which is also bad. And I don't think that he plays tomorrow, but now that he's playing this many minutes, maybe he can? I'm not sure. That's the one to watch. Well, John Isaac, who, again, back spasms had ruined him, he had 10 and 8 in 22 minutes, a 3, 2 steals, and a block. If I thought he was playing tomorrow, I would say, yeah, that's great. We're going at him, but I don't think he's playing tomorrow. Banchero had 21, 7, and 6, and Gaz Harris had 6 points in his 31 minutes. Bad night from Wendell Carter. They just didn't use him very much. He had 7 points in 21 minutes, just struggled, and still don't think that he's a must-roster guy. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. And the absolute erasure of Cole Anthony this season has been so confusing. Although, if Fultz is out tomorrow, I think we get more out of Cole. He had 2 points in 12 minutes here. It's been very, very poor from him this season. For the Rockets, if you wanted the indication of they're going to rest guys because they're out of the playoffs, here you go. 38 minutes to Van Vliet, 37, 8, and 6 with 6 threes. 40 minutes for Jabari Smith, 23, 7, and 5. And 38 minutes for Amen Thompson, whose minutes have been pushed way back. But he was great, 13 and 8 with 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Now, I would mention that part of the reason that Amen Thompson's minutes have been pushed back is because Cam Whitmore had returned. And Whitmore got ejected after 6 minutes, so we got more Amen. So I wouldn't say that Amen is locked into big minutes, but let's see how that goes. Brooks was fine, 15, 5, and 3. Cool. Don't want to use him really. And then Jalen Green, yeah, we are back into pumpkin mode. 14, 5, and 5, 35%. The 5 assists are nice. He missed both of his free throws. But after that little streak, like 95th over the last 5 games, just back to being Jalen Green. It was nice while it lasted, I guess, and at least he showed us something for a small period of time. I'm going to go on to the next game now. That's the wrong button, but I'll hit it again because that's what we do around here. It's the Sacramento Kings and the Oklahoma City Thunder. 2 changes for the Thunder. Shea returned. That meant Cason Wallace moved to the bench, and then the Bronco Jalen Williams returned, and that meant that Aaron Wiggins moved back to the bench. Good win from the Thunder, 112-105, the final score. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this, but I will say it again. This is what happens. Because Keon Ellis played 36 minutes. He had 26, 6 and 5, 2 steals, 2 blocks, and hit 8 threes. I should have tweeted this out because Keon Ellis, I think, had 2 threes in the first 3 minutes, and I was going to tweet it out. I was going to say, Keon Ellis hit 2 shots in the first quarter, big minutes incoming. This is how Mike Brown rolls. You miss your first 3 shots, you're done. You hit your first 3, good luck. And it worked out fantastically. And Ellis has been very, very up and down. You've had monster games and then nothing games. It's very hard to trust. Huge here. Fox, 33, 8 and 6. Fantastic. Keegan Murray continues to have some real consistency problems. 15 and 10 is great, but 31% sucks. And he's 126th over his last 5 games. And he's barely a top 100 player this year, 99th. And then Sabonis, one of the worst games he's had. Well, what an absolute stinker this is. 8, 13 and 5 on 29% from the field. And then to boot, he goes 4 of 7 from the line. One of his worst games. Speaking of worst games, the Pencil Harrison Barnes. Barnesy. That's a bit harsh. This was better for him. 10 and 6 in 27 minutes. And we still do not care. For the Thunder, Shea had 40 points in 38 minutes. Yeah, I guess he's back. He had a Richie Beno. He had 7 assists and 4 steals. And even Lou Dort got in on the action. 18 points for Dorter with 55% shooting. Now, they play tomorrow. I'm not sure if there's any risk of Shea sitting in that one, but watch it. Isaiah Joe had a couple of steals. Chet Holmgren was good with a Richie Beno, 15 and 9 for him. And Jalen Williams, not his best, but he did play 36 minutes, so that's encouraging. 11 and 6. While Josh Giddey went back to December, January Josh Giddey. 21 minutes, 4 points, 4 rebounds. He did add 2 blocks, but that's back to the bad old days from Giddey. We're still going to hold him for now, but that's absolutely whatever the opposite of encouraging is. Aaron Wiggins had been playing well, but in this smaller role, you can't really derive anything good out of that from a fantasy point of view. The next game, where I already spoiled it with a little stinger, we're talking Utah Jazz. We're talking Denver Nuggets. There were some lineup changes in this one on the Utah side because Colin Sexton will not play all 82 games now. He was sick, so Johnny Juzang, ESPN unavailable legend who was on the roster last season, he started, and then they benched Bryce Sensabaugh and started Luka Šamanić. And I know that I criticize ESPN a lot. Some might say rightfully so, because it is rightfully so. But there is zero excuse in the world, absolutely no excuse in the world for anybody to play fantasy on ESPN. And ESPN, I don't care. You can come at me if you want. But if you're going to have such cavalier disregard of care to have a bloke like Johnny Juzang, who played 30-plus minutes last game, started this one, and was on a roster last season, if he's not available to pick up, then you just don't care. Then you spit in the face of everybody who tries to play this game, who is an NBA fan, who works in the space like me, or even the people who work for you. Embarrassing. And this is probably the 40th time, I reckon, this year, probably not, at least double digits, where I've had to say, hey, this bloke's not available on ESPN. Remember Skylar Mays was starting for the Blazers early this year? Couldn't add him. Just couldn't do it. Not available. Embarrassing. Unbelievably embarrassing. The Nuggets get the win, 111-95. 27 minutes for Jamal Murray. What a crazy game from Jamal. 28, 2 and 4 with 4 steals and 3 blocks for the headmaster. Well, Jokic had 28, 13 and 7, 3 steals and a block. I don't know whether Murray plays tomorrow against the Wolves. You would think probably not, given the injuries and the fact that he's just returning, but I don't know. No Aaron Gordon, so maybe he returns tomorrow. Christian Brown had 11 points with 4 assists and 2 steals. Michael Ponder played only the 29 minutes. He had 12 and 9, and KCP stunk. 6 points in his 29, but we know what he is. He's a stream guy for threes, gets some steals, gets some free throw percentage. That is what KCP does. We also got 30 minutes out of Peyton Watson, which I always love to see. Now, he only shot 29%, which sucks, but another 2 blocks. 30 minutes of Peyton Watson is almost 2 blocks guaranteed, and that can always be something that is useful at this point of the year. We got the Utah Jazz, and finally we got big minutes out of the starters. Well, more in particular, Omer Yurtseven. The sexiest man in the NBA, maybe, he's close. He's not bad. He's a pretty good-looking bloke. Good-looking rooster. 20 and 11 for Yurtseven in 37 minutes, and with Kessler and Collins, I don't think they're returning. You can look at Yurtseven, and rightfully so, you shouldn't look at Darius Baisley, who did still get 25 minutes, and he had 8 and 5. Shamanic started, played 35 minutes, he had 15 and 11. I don't want to consider Shamanic as an ad, but man, like that's useful. And then this bloke. 0-minute last game legend Taylor Horton Tucker had 24, 3 and 2, 4 threes, a steal and a block, took 23 shots, continues to absolutely suck balls backwards. And that's not a real phrase, but I made it up. That is how bad this bloke is. He scored a lot, Taylor. Why would you give him minutes? I don't know, but they did. I guess with Sexton out, they needed somebody to generate a shot and miss a lot of them, but he did that. I guess you could stream him tomorrow, but bloody hell, I do not feel confident with it. Sensible, only 21 minutes. He had 10 and 5, and he shot poorly. Well, Hendricks really stunk. 3 and 5 with the 1-1. They're just not high-priority guys at this point in their career. George struggled. 10, 3 and 5. You don't have to roster him. And, as per usual, John Juzang sucked. He had a great game last time out, but he is not an NBA player. He started, he had 5 points on 25% in 32 minutes, and we do not roster John Juzang. Doesn't absolve ESPN of their sins of not including players to be available to add, but we don't roster John Juzang because he is bad. Let's do the next game, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Portland Trailblazers. The Pelicans win it 110-100. Big one from Trey Murphy. 38 minutes, 31 and 8 with 5 threes. Christian James McCollum really continuing to put up big numbers with Ingram out. 29, 5 and 3 with 5 threes. And Zion, a little bit muted and very, very weirdly bad field goals. But he had 22 and 7. He shot 39 from the field, but somehow went 8 of 9 from the line. A very good game again from the dustbuster Dyson Daniels. Now, if you're adding Daniels, you're not doing it for scoring. He had 4 points. But 5 assists, 2 steals, 28 minutes is very encouraging. While we're in downturn Herb time because we had 38 minutes of Jones for 7 points. He did have 2 steals, but everything is just down for Herb at the moment. And that happens with him a lot. Jonas Valanciunas played 4 minutes last game. He did get to 21 here. He had 11, 8, and 5, which is reasonable. But if this is best case scenario, you just don't need to necessarily have Valanciunas on your 12-man roster. And Alvarado was great last game, and then he had 2 points on 17%. For the Blazers, same stuff for them. We know that Simons, Grant, Brogdon, Sharp, well, officially they said Sharp's not coming back today after they teased us that he would, but he's not. We know these guys aren't returning. Ayton had another absolute monster. This run from him has been awesome. 18th over the last 2 weeks. He had 30 and 13 in 36 minutes, while Chris Murray had a better game as well. 14 points, 4 threes, and 2 blocks. I wouldn't get excited about adding Murray, but he's at least sort of mixing into the stream area. And Scooter, shot bad, yeah. Poor shooting, 19 points, 39%. But 15 assists and a steal is great. Played 41 minutes, and we are starting to see some flashes from Henderson. Delano Banton had the Delano Banton game, and that's the 36% shooting game. He'd been awesome very clearly. He had 12, 3, and 3. Someone left a comment on the video, and I think it's always worth throwing these things out. I directly replied to this guy, but it also because if one person thinks it, then there are others that think it as well. Because I said that all these games from Delano Banton, they're really big. They don't mean anything real from a real perspective moving forward. And he said, Josh, how can you possibly say that? How can you say that these games don't mean anything? Delano Banton has been a key part in winning many people their fantasy championship, right? Which is undoubtedly true, but it also means absolutely nothing. And the reason I say this is Delano Banton is doing all of these great things, putting up fantastic numbers with some efficiency stuff. But if you're talking about where does this mean he goes next season, what happens to him down the line, this team is not real. There's no Brogdon who knows where he is in this team. There's no Simons. There's no Grant. There's no Sharp. All of this stuff that's happening is with everybody out, and Banton's still coming off the bench behind Ryan Rupert. So while, yes, Delano Banton is putting up great numbers and he has been a league winner for people coming off the bench, this means absolutely nothing in terms of what we do with him in fantasy and dynasty moving forward. Nothing. These games are almost pointless for a guy like Delano Banton in terms of our evaluation. Yeah, he's doing some really interesting stuff and has had an extended look at things. But this doesn't mean, wow, Blazers are really going to be happy now. They might actually just move on from Scoot and Sharp and run Banton as their guy. I don't think that's going to be the case. So those two thoughts can be held simultaneously. Banton's done a lot of good stuff, and we've been talking about him as an ad for weeks. But when we talk about what happens next season, he's still, I believe, going to be somewhat of an afterthought. And so much stuff can still go on and can still change. The inefficiency from Jabari Walker continues to be a real problem. The 10 rebounds are nice, but the other stuff sucks, while Rayan Repair had 6, 4, and 4 in his 33 minutes. And by the way, you don't do anything with Repair. You don't add him anywhere. Next, we go to the Clippers, taking on the Phoenix Suns. Some lineup changes here. James Harden was, in fact, out with his foot issue. That meant Russell Westbrook started, and then Yusuf Nurkic was out for Phoenix, so Drew Eubanks moved into that starting lineup. That wasn't the only change, though, because the Clippers decided that Norman Powell will be better suited in the starting lineup than PJ Tucker. I'm not really sure where they got that idea from, but that is the moves that ended up happening, and this game was pretty ridiculous. In the end, the Clippers do win at 105-92. I think they were up 30-6 in the first quarter, so the Suns did make their way back a little bit. On the Clippers side, not surprisingly, we got 40 minutes out of Westbrook. No Harden, no Kawhi. He had 16, 15, and 15. He shot poorly. He somehow didn't take a free throw, but these are great numbers. Now, I don't know whether Harden's going to be available tomorrow. I'm pretty sure Kawhi's not going to be available, so you can just keep rolling with Westbrook. Paul George had 23, 7, and 5, and Zubats had 17 and 13, but it was also a very good game from Terrence Mann. I love that he played 38 minutes. He had a double-double. It's very hard to trust Terrence Mann, and he shot 80% to get here, but if Kawhi and Harden are out, it does give somebody an extra chance to do more stuff. And another person who did more stuff was the Farmers Union, Amir Coffey, 13 and 4 with 2 steals and 3 threes. We don't look at that outside of maybe a free throw streamer, maybe some threes in deeper formats, but that's it. While Norman Powell continues to do like nothing. 10 points, 33 minutes, 2 threes. He's been highly, highly disappointing with Kawhi out. And basically, for the majority of the season, he's been a pretty large disappointment. For the Suns, speaking of disappointing, Bradley Beal had 5 blocks. And that's not disappointing. That's actually like, what are we talking about? 5 blocks. Yeah, 19, 7, and 3 for Bealo, while Royce O'Neal played 29 minutes and had 10 and 11 with 2 steals and a block. He actually started the second half over Drew Eubanks. They played a lot of small ball, and he was solid. And so was Eric Gordon, who had 11 points with 3 steals in 29 minutes. But I wouldn't be rushing to add O'Neal or Gordon. Booker had only 12 points on 9%. Yeah, what? That sucks. He did have 5 assists and went 10 of 11 from the line, but what a dreadful night. And Durant, not a lot better. 21 points for KD with 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals, and had 36 from the field on 22 shot attempts. And somehow went 3 of 5 from the line. An absolute stinker. Durant's 80th over the last 5 games. He has had some very weird games. It's what happens when you get older. The consistency just doesn't stay around. Eubanks started and played 12 minutes. He had 6 and 5. I said this yesterday. I said, look, maybe when we look at these tanking teams, a la Delano Banton, when Eubanks comes out and puts up good numbers and then they move to a real spot, you go, yeah, maybe they're just trash. And that they were just feasting like in a bad situation. Possible. Grayson Allen also not a lot of good stuff. He had 9 points on 23%, but he did add in 3 steals, and we keep rolling with him. The final game of the day was the Warriors and the Lakers. The Warriors get the victory over the Lakers in the end here. And this was a very, very key matchup. We had some lineup changes. Steph Curry returned for Golden State. That meant Chris Paul moved to the bench. LeBron, who wasn't at shoot around with his illness, he came and he played, and Spencer Dinwiddie moved back to the bench. But unfortunately for the Lakers, that wasn't enough because Anthony Davis wasn't available. Andy Wiggins did return for the Warriors. That moved Podziemski to the bench, and then Jackson Hayes had to start for Anthony Davis, who, despite getting hit in the head over the weekend and having an eye issue, which caused him to miss that game, had 2 days to recover, and then didn't play in this one because of a headache and nausea, but they said, no, he's not in the concussion protocol. All he did was get hit in the head and show classic concussion symptoms, but he's definitely not in the concussion protocol. So there's absolutely nothing to see here. Everything is totally fine. Now, I'm not saying that he's got a concussion, but bloody hell, it looks pretty bad. When you get smacked in the head, you have to sit out with headache and nausea 2 days later, and then you have to come out and deliberately say, like, me not being in the concussion protocol has been answered succinctly by my t-shirt that says I'm not in the concussion protocol. That's sort of how it feels, yeah? Well, that's where we're at with him. So I don't know that Anthony Davis is non-concussion. Does he return for their next one? Now, they don't play again until Friday because they got the weird 3-game schedule, so there's a little bit of time off there. But it's not fantastic. The Warriors win. Curry was great. 23, 7, and 8. 2 blocks on 78% coming through when it's needed. So was Clay, 27 with 5 threes. No watch today. Andy Wiggins also, 3 blocks, 29 minutes, 17 points. Love that from him. Still remains a little fringy, but that's great. While Draymond had a massive game, 15, 6, and 10. And Podziemski, that's good. I wouldn't add him. He only played 21 minutes, or 20 minutes actually, 13 points and 3 threes. Podziemski's not someone that we need to look at in 12s. And Kuminga, oh no. 21 minutes for JK, 8 and 6 on 25%. Look, if he's going to stay on the bench, and this is the downside, you may not need to roster him. I think I probably still would, but yeah. Not a great one from Jackson Davis. He had 7.7 rebounds, but did get the 3 blocks, just highly inefficient. I would still roster both Kuminga and Jackson Davis, but the question does start to needing to be asked at this point with 5 days left. Like, if the downside is 24 minutes for Jackson Davis or 21 minutes for Kuminga, that's really hard to consider their must-roster guys. For the Lakers, LeBron, 33, 7, 11. Fantastic. Rui, 20 and 11, 2 blocks. Unbelievable. Now, unfortunately, he shot 33%, but the other stuff, really good. Austin Reeves made up for the last game where he had 22, 7, and 6 here, and Russell had 14, 2, and 7. Jackson Hayes, good minutes, solid production, 11 and 6 and a steal and a block. And if you streamed him in to get some big man stats, you're not going to be too disappointed with that. While Dinwiddie, you're always going to be disappointed. 12, 4, and 0 in his 22 minutes. Shout out to the 2 points from the artist formerly known as Torian Prince as well. They are all of the games. So let's move on and talk monstrous line of the night. Who ends up with the coveted award? Who gets it? Well, we are going to go to a man that just returned from injury, and it is the big fella in Philadelphia, Joel Embiid, 37, 11, and 8 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. What about your waiver wire line of the night? Who was the best player available using our advanced roster percentage metric over on Basketball Monster? And it was, in fact, Sandro Mamukelashvili. 11 points, 16 rebounds. I think Wembanyama is going to sit tomorrow from the words of Greg Popovich today. It sounds like Tyler Hero could sit as well for Miami, by the way. But Mamukelashvili looks to be a pretty good option with Keldon likely out as well. Your young gun of the night, the best first or second year player from the 14 games of action. And we're going to go to Sacramento. We're going to go to Keon Ellis, who had 26 with 8 triples, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. He's just as likely to have 3 points on 10% shooting in the next game. We know that, but that was great. And lastly, we go to the dud of the night. Who was the worst performer? Who was facing their former team, who is the king of the Gattusos? Well, it was Paul Washington Jr., who had 1 point, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists going up against his former team. Now, that brings us to the end of the show. I'm not going to do the top 6 guys here. Actually, you know what? I'll just read them off. Number 1 was Embiid, followed by Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Nikola Jokic, Trey Murphy, and Fred VanVleet. Your top guys rostered under 50% of leagues. Number 1 was Mamukelashvili, followed by Obi Toppin, Evan Fournier, Omer Yurtseven, Javon Freeman-Liberty, and Nikola Jovic. And if I go to the top 6 guys in Yahoo points leagues, just to finish things off, Embiid, DeJounte Murray, Luka Doncic, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Guys, that brings us to the end of the show. So hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe, ring the notification bell as well, and tell me, did you love the performances today? Did you get dicked over? Drop it in the comments. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.